All right, welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Friday, June 20th, 2025, and welcome to summer, with the summer solstice set to arrive at 7:42 p.m. in the west, 10:42 tonight in the east. Today is Take Your Dog to Work Day. A lot of people are excited about that, obviously. If you work from home, that doesn't really count, okay? It's also World Refugee Day, created in the year 2000 by the United Nations General Assembly, which describes today as a day to honor the courage, strength, and resilience of refugees that have been forced to flee their homes due to war, persecution, or violence, which is likely to stir up more demonstrations and protests in sanctuary cities today, especially in Chicago, where the radical left mayor continues calling for people to rise up and fight back. In Ohio, Republican Congressman Max Miller, who is Jewish, says a man waving a Palestinian flag tried to run him off the road.
You have an issue? Take it to our office. You want to run me off the road? That's a different story.
This, of course, comes as violence against lawmakers and those who enforce the laws continues to rise across the country. In Washington, President Trump is holding another Oval Office meeting today with his national security team after saying he'll make a decision about possible military action against Iran sometime in the next 2 weeks. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today.
The Pentagon has confirmed it's moving more troops and hardware into the region. There is one aircraft carrier that is already there. Another is now headed that way from the Pacific, and a third carrier strike group will be leaving from Virginia. This is former Navy SEAL and combat veteran Carl Higbie, host of Frontline.
Look, it's really easy for people, especially elected representatives, to say, yeah, we got to stop Iran from having a nuke. Let's bomb their nuclear facility, with absolutely no understanding of what that entails. And the biggest problem with the people saying that, no one has asked the question, okay, and then what? If you think we should bomb this, which, by the way, I'm not privy to all the intelligence, and I'm honestly on the fence about it, I don't know which way I stand right now. And that's okay for me to say, because I'm not making the decision. But people who are making the decision, who are privy, are not consistent. There's no unilateral consent about it either.
No, no and no. The United States, our involvement should be to help de-escalate, to help deconflict.
Help Israel finish the job, give them bombs, fly with them if necessary.
I've been saying, oh, hell yes, for I think it's almost 6 weeks. Yeah, bomb and destroy their nuclear facilities.
Now, many others are voicing their opinion on social media. Thomas Massie tweeting, "This is not our war." Well, other members of Congress signed on, including AOC and Rashida Tlaib. But I will say that the difference between me and the members of Congress or the media or whoever is calling for us to bomb this mountain right now, I would go. I was great at war. I loved it. And if you had told me that I had unilateral authority to go kill members of the Iranian regime, I would take it tonight as a vacation. I would go home, I would get my body armor and my gun and my boys, and I would be on the next plane over there. These people funded and facilitated the killing of hundreds and maybe thousands of my brothers and sisters in Iraq. 4 of them were close friends of mine, right in proximity to me. And that's the difference between, me and them. But I'm not committing my country to war. But I asked the people calling for action, would you do the same? 99% of the people who are commenting on this or have decision making, they haven't, they didn't, they couldn't, and or wouldn't go and put their own skin in the game. So consider that when you're listening to them post on social media. But here's the question to those same people. If Iran bombed us, would we consider that an act of war? Seriously, label it. Because if you have a bunch of radical mullahs that believe they're fulfilling some sort of religious caliphate by doing whatever they're doing and are such fanatics that they will exhaust every resource to retaliate. They can't go toe-to-toe with us in a war, but they can inflict pain. And I'm not getting into the sleeper cells even that have been let into our open borders when Joe Biden was president. I'm not even going to go into that right now. But let's say we bomb Iran. that's an act of war. Save your semantics. It is. Iran will retaliate in some manner. Then what? Sure, we took out their nuclear facility. Iran can't have a nuke anymore. But maybe now they've bombed or terrorized or even taken American hostages in the region, or maybe here domestically. Now what? No one is asking these questions. What do we do at that point? We're just caught up in the moment.
Excellent question from a guy who has talked the talk and walked the walk, Middle East war veteran who actually knows what he's talking about, Carl Higbie. Forget everything that has happened in the past. Let's just look at what's happening right now. Israel is bombing Iran's nuclear and military sites. Iran is bombing civilians in Israel. Hamas, one of the terror proxies of Iran, what have they been doing for the past 2 years in Gaza? After taking hostages, they used people and a hospital as a shield. Terrorism is how they would retaliate for us bombing them. They cannot go to war with us, but they can commit acts of terror. Also, let's wake up. Elizabeth Warren, AOC, any other Democrats except maybe John Fetterman that are showing some sort of support for the president and are all for bombing Iran, they're only saying that so they can eventually say that Trump got us into a war. If there were a major terror attack on the United States, then they could say it's Trump's fault. Wake up. They don't care about us. All they care about is getting Trump, get Trump at all costs, and getting their power back. Someone who knows President Trump as well as anyone and understands politics very well is Jason Miller, the former advisor of the Trump transition team and the 2024 Trump campaign.
You know him so well, Jason. Share your thoughts on where you think he is today with our viewers. We know there's a lot of huddling, intelligence sharing, and things could change in a moment.
They really can. I think it's important to take a step back and remember where President Trump is coming from in this process. Keep in mind that his uncle was a nuclear scientist, someone who told the president about the dangers of nuclear war even when he was young, when he was in his teen years. So this is something the president's spoken out about for years and years. He wants to make sure that Iran cannot develop a nuclear program. So as the president is looking at this situation right now, number one, he's getting the intelligence about where they actually are in the process. Number two, he's taking a look at what the Israelis have already done. Number three, what is it that the president could do with U.S. armed forces to impact that? And then a decision will be made. So everything starts and stops with how do we make sure that Iran never has the nukes? Because as you saw Prime Minister Netanyahu say, that's exactly something that Iran would use. And it's only a matter of time. Iran will tell you over and over that they're not going to do it. They want to sit down at the table. They just want to talk until it's too late.
Yeah, and it might be too late, but we will watch things very closely. I know there's been some questions about Tulsi Gabbard and some comments she made about what is happening. In June 10th, she posted a video, Jason, and suggesting that political elite, warmongers, it seems that there was some unhappiness. Even President Trump had voiced concerns about this. Why do you think she posted something like that?
Well, I think also taking a look here that both Tulsi and the president are on the exact same page. They're both saying that Iran is moving at breakneck pace to try to develop or try to enrich uranium needed for nuclear weapons. I think the director of DNI had some comments with regard to where in that process they might be then on the delivery mechanism of that. But also, I think she's very much reflecting the president's position that we do not want to get pulled into a third Gulf War, that we do not want to have another situation where this is the U.S. having to go in, and there are far too many people in Washington. You know them, I know them, everybody knows them. They want to have boots on the ground. They want to have regime change. They want to have the third Gulf War. They want nothing more than the U.S. to be embroiled in this. And I think Tulsi was really speaking to the fact that that is not what President Trump is about. President Trump is about making sure Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. So I think in Washington, too often there's this kind of false binary construct where it's either, well, you have to go all interventionist and have boots on the ground and all these things, or you do nothing. That's not the case. What President Trump wants to do is stop them from getting the nuclear weapon.
Former senior advisor to the Trump campaign and the Trump transition team, Jason Miller on Newsmax with Bianca De La Garza. And let's go to Rob Schmitt, host of Schmitt Tonight, who talked about how the president is weighing all this out.
Trump has given Iran weeks now to come to the table. He was clearly frustrated yesterday when he demanded to know why they didn't negotiate for 60 days. As that Iranian delegation took 3 jets to Oman, they scrambled those planes to get to Oman. We know that Steve Witkoff has been talking to Iran's foreign minister, but Trump's patience clearly is running thin. He said within the next 2 weeks he'll make a decision that could be really any time. And if Witkoff tells him that Iran is still just stalling, trying to buy time, look out. Overnight, Israel continued hammering Iran and its nuclear sites. Iran responding with more cheap shots against civilians. They bombed the largest hospital in southern Israel. And in response to that, and a lot of injuries, Israel's defense minister saying this.
I want to say a dictator like Khomeini, who heads a country like Iran, and has made the destruction of Israel his mission, cannot continue to exist. The IDF has been instructed and knows that in order to achieve all of its goals, this man absolutely should not continue to exist.
So that's a senior Israeli official saying that it is time for the supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah, to die. Not long after that, really not very long at all, just about 2 hours ago, a large explosion in a northeastern suburb of Tehran that's called Lavizan. This is where many senior Iranian officials live. This is also where the Ayatollah is hiding in a bunker. And all we know at this point is that there has been a fairly large explosion in that neighborhood. We await more information on what that might be. And as we wait, the White House continues to push back against some of MAGA's biggest names who have created a fracture in Trump's coalition. It was a question at today's press briefing. Take a listen.
What's your message to everyday Trump supporters, not the Tucker Carlsons or other big names, but everyday Trump supporters, grassroots who voted for President Trump to stop the wars, rejected this in the primary, going into another war with voting against Nikki Haley, and they want to see non-U.S. involvement in this war? What's your message?
Trust in President Trump. President Trump has incredible instincts, and President Trump kept America and the world safe in his first term as president in implementing a peace through strength foreign policy agenda.
Trust the president. The press secretary also reinforcing why the president is taking this bold action that's making MAGA's isolationists feel so uncomfortable, telling reporters that Iran has everything that it needs to build a weapon. And if the decision is made to do it, it would only take a couple of weeks to do so. U.S. Central Command seems to agree with that assessment from 9 days ago, the CENTCOM commander saying it is estimated that current stockpiles and the available centrifuges are sufficient to produce its first 25 kilograms of weapons-grade material in roughly 1 week, and enough for up to 10 nuclear weapons in 3 weeks. There's a big difference between trying to start a war and trying to prevent one. This is clearly prevention. You can't let Iran behave this way and also build nuclear weapons. It's no different than taking out Soleimani during the first term. Show the mullahs in Iran who is boss, because they are acting like fanatical lunatics. Put the fear of God into these people, and as the White House works to keep the confidence of Trump's base, there are Republicans out there that are not helping at all. Here's Tom Tillis straight up pushing for regime change in Iran.
It's time for regime change. And I believe that this president should be given a fair amount of leeway to effect that.
Okay, not really a popular place to go, but that's Tom Tillis. That's not Donald Trump.
Rob Schmitt tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax. Rob also spoke with popular radio host and founder of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk.
You look at the polling, and it's pretty strong that nobody thinks that Iran should have a nuclear weapon, right? It's a government that's run by psychopathic Islamic fundamentalists. But at the same time, nobody wants this another disaster in the Middle East, another Iraq, another Afghanistan. He's got to kind of balance these two things. And it just, it's... You can see he's obviously put a lot of pressure the last couple of days. It felt like he was going to do something at any moment. It kept kind of escalating, the rhetoric he was saying. And then all of a sudden now you're feeling this pause. He maybe wants to give Iran a chance to do the right thing, but at the same time, he wants a full capitulation. It's a tough balance here.
It is. He wants unconditional surrender. And understand that President Trump has largely inherited a mess from Joe Biden and from Barack Obama, who set the table for Iran to be able to have this accelerated nuclear timeline, and they turned an eye on this. And so President Trump is trying to fix this mess. But understand, when President Trump issues a threat, he means it. President Trump used violent and precise action in the first Trump administration against Soleimani, against al-Baghdadi, against ISIS, against Syria. He did it recently against the Houthis. He is not a dove. He's not an isolationist. But also, President Trump is interested in nation building, one nation, America. That is what he wants his focus to be, and only President Trump can navigate this.
It was funny because you saw how he talked about it yesterday. He was like, why didn't you come to me in the 60 days that we gave you? And Iran is trying to play the same game that everybody's been able to play with this country for a very long time, which is that we have a tremendous amount of patience with bad actors of the world. And it's run out. It has run out. And maybe he's saying in the next couple of weeks he's going to make his decision. We don't know if that means anything. I mean, he could see another, he could see more nonsense. Witkoff's talking to his, the same position over in Iran. And if he hears more just delay, stall, nonsense, you have no idea when Trump's going to make this move. But this is not the same. These are not the same people that we saw under Biden and under Obama. And just to reinforce that, in the monologue, you heard from one of Obama's former advisors, who's now an MSNBC political analyst, this Richard Stengel guy, who says that Iran is a very pro-Western country, a very Western-friendly country. He marginalized the rhetoric that you hear from Iranian parliament. I mean, you talk about it's like these guys are delusional. And you think about Robert Malley that Biden had in his State Department. That was just a Iran propagandist. And you see how Iran has gotten so spoiled by the actions of the United States and how they've become so indignant in their behavior.
Yeah, that's right. And we must understand that if we were to do forceful regime change, sounds good. Lindsey Graham is cheering for that. What would happen to the refugees? Where would they go? Millions of people going to the West. The country could fall into civil war. And understand, they're warriors there. These are the Persians. They were a great power for 1,000 years. Not even the Romans could defeat Persia. Now, I'm not saying they're comparable to our Marines or to our Air Force, but is that really the battle that we want in front of us? And President Trump understands this astutely. He'll understand that so many people are saying, you must bomb right now. You must bomb right now. And other people equally say, oh, don't worry about it. Who cares if Iran gets a nuclear weapon? So President Donald Trump has something that the history books will write about. This is what legends are made of. This is the moment that President Trump was elected for. The highest level statesman can only handle and can only manage. And that is to be able to balance two things. Number one, America does not want Iran to get a nuclear bomb. But number two, America does not want in any way, shape, or form to have a long quagmire in the Middle East to try to get into another Iraq or Libya or Syria or Afghanistan. And so it is a very difficult thread to needle, a high wire act. And I could tell you one other thing here, Rob, is that, as you know, I represent younger voters, especially those under the age of 30. President Donald Trump did something that I never would have been able to dream, and I was honored to be along for the ride. Win younger voters. The fact President Trump won the youth vote in Michigan, it's unbelievable. It's a 30-point swing. We've never seen anything like it. I will tell you, for younger voters especially, they're telling me on social media, they say, we love President Trump, but we have a little bit of caution about potentially getting into a regime change war in the Middle East. Yeah. And that was one of the number one reasons why we were able to bring so many Democrats over to vote for President Trump, because they're tired of the wars. They do not want more money being sent overseas when their own country is falling apart. And that's why they support President Trump. And one of the reasons why President Trump was able to win the youth vote.
Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, on Rob Schmitt Tonight. As I said earlier, the president is holding more meetings with his national security team today, and then he'll be headed out of D.C. for his New Jersey golf club. Will he be participating in some sort of Make America Great Again event tonight? He is, of course, already being criticized for leaving the White House and going to his golf club especially, but we know that he can get things done there if he needs to, just like he does when he's home at Mar-a-Lago, also a golf resort. And let's shift gears and wrap it up here with something else that has happened in D.C. this week. The Supreme Court ruled to uphold a ban on transgender health care for minors. This is Dr. Oz on National Report.
You know, Dr. Oz, I wanted to ask you about a recent ruling by the Supreme Court. It came down yesterday, and if you're not familiar with it, if our viewers are also catching up on the news here, it essentially upholds a Tennessee law which would ban the use of puberty blockers or artificial hormones here, or those gender-altering surgeries for minors. We'd been waiting to see how the Supreme Court would rule. I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on, again, that 6-3 decision that ultimately allowed Tennessee to keep that in place so young children wouldn't be able to undergo these surgeries.
I think is a good example where the science has caught up with the rhetoric from the left on transgender care. I firmly believe that as we look back on this era when we misled a lot of people into thinking that it was hard science evidence that it was worthwhile transforming children's gender because of feelings they had when they were young and unable really to own those actions for the rest of their lives. Many of these young children now, when they become adults, have been harmed irreversibly in ways that allow them to be appropriately angry with a system that allowed this to happen. When Tennessee said we're not going to allow this to happen anymore by preventing caregivers, many of them financially motivated from doing these expensive operations or giving hormone therapies that are also expensive and whose prices have gone up because of this market opportunity. The Supreme Court said it's their right to do that. It's okay to protect your children. There are 20 other states, as you point out, that have similar rules that are there or coming on. I'll speak for the federal government, my agency, CMS, that we're looking with great intent at whether or not the American taxpayers should be involved financially in this. Why should American taxpayers be paying to have transgender surgery done on adolescents around the country? These are all issues that are on the table, and this is a clarion call that will continue until these harmful procedures are stopped, and they should not be taking place anymore in American hospitals.
Great to hear from and see Dr. Oz, now a member of the Trump administration, who also commented on what I have been telling you about all this week: the success of RFK Jr. and the Department of Health and Human Services.
One by one, we're going to get rid of every ingredient and additive to school in food that we can legally address.
Taking petroleum-based food dyes out of the food supply is not a silver bullet that will instantly make America's children healthy, but it is one important step.
And sure enough, on Tuesday, Kraft Heinz, General Mills announcing they will be removing artificial dyes from U.S. products. Kraft Heinz saying it will begin to phase out in 2027. General Mills starts their summer of 26 for all foods served in K through 12 schools. How big of an announcement is this?
Emma, it's a massive advance for the many forces who believe that we have made it hard to be healthy in America. And I'm proud of Secretary Kennedy for leading this battle. FDA Commissioner Marty McCary has been a tireless advocate as well, saying, hey, listen, we can clean up the food supply and make it easier for moms to pick the right foods for their kids. Why should we have products in American foods that aren't allowed in other countries? Just because you haven't proven that it's dangerous, we shouldn't assume that it's okay. And the proliferation of chemicals that kids are exposed to, both from environmental toxins, but actually in foods that we're giving to our children, has raised many concerns. The fact that these companies hear the message from Washington and act on it reflects the power of the U.S. government. If we send a clear message, hey, listen, we don't want to do this anymore. We don't think it's good for our kids. We're going to pass the rules required to protect the MAHA moms, the moms that have to make the big decisions for their families, the chief family officer. It sort of gives me confidence that America is being heard and that the federal government is responding to their cries for help. And industry hears that and is reacting. It's how it's supposed to work.
Dr. Mehmet Oz, now the Trump administration's administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, on National Report with Emma Reckenberg and Sean Kreisman, who is obviously back from vacation. Welcome back, Sean. Also in the news today, the Taipei Defense Ministry says China has been flying warplanes near Taiwan and crossed over the median line this morning, and that China has recently sent a warship into the area as well. The Defense Ministry says it has responded accordingly with no further details and is monitoring the situation. This comes after a UK ship recently passed through the strait, a UK warship, And as several delegates, U.S. delegates, led by Texas Congressman Michael McCaul, chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, visited Taiwan this week to congratulate and welcome its new president. This is something that China does, right? Not only are they always provocative towards Taiwan, but you remember a few years ago when Nancy Pelosi made an ill-advised trip to Taiwan, and then China was doing some of the same stuff. Big news on Wall Street this morning. Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller, I should say very welcome news, said he doesn't expect tariffs to boost inflation significantly and that policymakers should be looking to lower interest rates as early as next month. Stocks opened in the green on that news after being lower earlier this morning. Today is what they call Triple Witching Friday on Wall Street, which is when stock options, stock index futures, and stock index options all expire on the same day. It only happens a few times a year. Apparently, it's a big deal, typically makes for a volatile day. And the back-to-back winning Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers will have their Champions Parade on Sunday. I believe it's going to be along the world-famous Fort Lauderdale Strip. And last night, the Indiana Pacers blew out the Thunder 108-91, forcing a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. That Game 7 will happen on Sunday as well in Oklahoma City. And NASCAR, which is pissing off a lot of fans, including me, with all their penalties and lawsuits, is in Pocono, Pennsylvania this weekend. My man Joey Logano or Kyle Larson are both due for a win. Keep up with all of the news and all the breaking developments throughout the day on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com, where it all started. The news starts each and every morning with Wake Up America. That includes the Wake Up America Weekend Edition. America Right Now, 9 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning with Tom Basili. Saturday and Sunday Report. Saturday and Sunday Agenda. Sunday night is Rob Carson, Michael Savage, documentary, special programming, and much more throughout the weekend on Newsmax and N2. I'm Tony Marino. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a fantastic weekend doing whatever it is you love to do. Pay attention and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.